Welcome, everybody. This is the official underwriting challenge training that we're going to get started here in a few minutes. Give people a chance to roll in, and we will get started shortly. Feel free to ask any questions if you got any beforehand while we're killing some time here. We're probably going to give it about 2 or 3 minutes, and then we'll go ahead and get started. I do like to hear from someone before I get started, just so I know my audio works.
Mundo, it's Mark.
Hey, what's up, man? Thank you for being the sacrificial lamb on the audio. Appreciate it.
Well, about a half an hour ago, I got the notification that you're coming here and coming on, and of course, it's written down on my calendar. I write in longhand. Where's it at? Oh well, I can't see my ink pen. But I also received a telephone call that did not register on my phone. I looked at my phone. It says, "Oh, you got a call." Well, I looked at that up. I didn't hear my phone ring. You know what I'm saying? So I'm asking you. The telephone number was labeled Angela zero down. Is Angela zero down on our team, or is that from Arizona? And is that something that was meant for this, or maybe it's meant for something else?
Definitely not meant for this, but Angela, I know there is an Angela that works for sub 2 team, so that probably is a legitimate call that you got, but it has nothing to do with this.
Well, I had read Pace's morning text message, and I responded to it. I guess it was Phil's birthday, and so I said happy birthday, and Phil's message for the morning was rather poignant, and I understood it, and so I responded, and I wrote back, and I said happy birthday, Phil, and so maybe she was responding to that.
I don't know. I didn't get a chance to see that, unfortunately.
So you understand how my phone registered the incoming call, but I didn't hear my phone ring.
Yeah, no worries, man.
Oh well, I'm excited to get started.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll post a link here. Try to get people to join the Zoom so I get a little bit more active in that.
I got some snow on the overnight. I got just a dusting. Did you get any snow down there?
We did get some
this
snow.
Morning. After it melted all off, then we got another little dusting on the overnight.
No, it was a couple days ago when it snowed here. Okay, cool. Well, I'm not going to waste too much time. I'm just going to get to it. So let me share my screen and let's get into it. Hold on one second. Okay, awesome. So this is the first of probably many, honestly, challenges or trainings per se for the underwriting challenge. And today we're going to talk about Morby methods. We'll probably spend about 30 minutes talking about Morby methods. And just so you know, at 5:30, so right now for me, it's 5 o'clock Eastern time, our Indianapolis meetup starts. So we'll have some, background noise and some overlap of people coming in. I figured that would be a good point or a good time to transition to do some sub 2 training. So we're going to touch on Morby methods, and then we're going to touch on sub 2 training as well. And the goal is for you guys to learn how to underwrite and then eventually pitch to buyers. So I will be, talking to some buyers and highlighting them tomorrow. Probably more so the focus on them is just for tomorrow, at least, is just to get some exposure, get you familiar to them, You get to know them, get to know what they're looking for, so that way you can start sending deals. I mean, realistically, if you have some deals, absolutely, let's throw them in front of the buyers. But realistically, if you're learning and it's new to you, it'll probably take you, a week or so just playing around with things and trying to get familiar with underwriting before you get comfortable enough to send the deal. So this is the first of probably many trainings to kind of get you comfortable with underwriting and being able to get deals in front of buyers. So that's what we're going to cover tonight. I am recording this and I am not going to send this out, just FYI. So so I have a paid workshop. We're not here to talk about that, but as part of that paid workshop is an underwriting series where people paid $1,000 just for that portion of the series. We're basically going to cover that in a condensed version tonight. That's honestly, it's just like a crazy amount of value that I'm about to give. Like I'm not sending out the recording for that reason, just FYI. So you snooze, you lose. I'm sorry. If people ask for the recording, maybe it'll be posted later within the software or some way that you can earn the training or something like that. But this is definitely a premium training. And although this is a free competition, this is not free value. I can assure you that. Definitely going to be a lot of value that we're going to talk about in a very short period of time. Now we're not going to go. So the workshop training I did was like an hour long. I think it was even like an hour and a half on Morby methods. So we're not going to go that deep today. We're only going to talk about it for about 20-ish minutes before we transition to some sub 2 training. But we are going to touch on it pretty quickly, and let's just dive in. So first thing I'm doing, I got Zillow up here, and I'm going to search Columbus, Ohio. And so I'm going to be looking for seller finance opportunities. I'm just looking for leads right now. So I'm just going to look for leads. Okay, so let's click on this. Now, sometimes when you type in seller finance, the agents have in the listing description, no seller finance. I hate investors. I hate wholesalers. Maybe not in those exact words, but you can read between the lines. And so you have to filter that out because Zillow doesn't know how to filter that out. So you can see right here, owner financing available. What's interesting about this one, it says that agent has an interest in the property. And a lot of times when I've seen that, it's like the agent is almost like sabotaging the deal and like doesn't want to present offers to the seller. I actually had a seller. I did a Morby method. It was my first Morby method. He was an attorney, and I forgot I'm on YouTube. So I did a Morby method, and it was the first time he had ever seen that. And he actually went on to go and do like, I don't know. I talked to the title company a couple years later, like probably over 100 of those types of transactions, the exact way I did it. And so he pretty much just like took everything that we did in that transaction and just replicated it. So that would be an initial concern, obviously, with this agent of if I put in an offer and he was like, damn, why didn't I think about that? And then he, kind of ghost me, and you never know till you reach out, right? Anyways, I'm just picking out a random deal, so I'm not going to invent a story that hasn't happened yet, but just keep that in mind. If you see something like that, there's a pretty decent chance that they're going to sabotage your deal because they're literally telling you right there they have an interest in buying the property themselves. So they have a basically an interest, right? They're telling you that they want the property. So why wouldn't they want to act in their own best interest, irrespective of their role, if that's what they really want? So we're going to underwrite this property, and we're going to go into, get these Zoom things out of the way here. We're going to go into Buy Box Club. So if you are signed up for the underwriting challenge and you have not signed up for an account, I will be hunting you down if you have not signed up. There's no reason why you shouldn't be signing up. It's absolutely free. There's always going to be a free version. You even get free access to the premium version. Like, there's no reason why you can't use this. We're not here to pitch you anything. So everybody should be signing up for an account, getting your buy box set up. We're not going to talk about that too much right now, but we're going to dive into underwriting a deal. So we're going to start with underwriting a deal. Well, I will touch on the buy box part real quick. So if you look at going to my buy boxes. When you first create a profile, it would be, even if you're not a buyer, I think it'll be helpful to create a buy box, because this will set the stage for your underwriting defaults. For me, it's really annoying when I have to go into a deal and every deal I have to go and change inputs every single time. Well, this is going to pre-save your preferences for you. So if we just dive into the buy box setting here, I have some parameters set for what I'm looking for, but more so in the settings, these are default parameters that I want to see populated in all of my deals. So it's pretty helpful. It just saves a lot of time for underwriting. So at probably, I want to say maybe in a week or two from now, I'm still working on testing this feature. You'll have the ability to upload a list of deals, and it will just underwrite it for you. And then it will send out the LOI for you. And you'll even be able to have AI make calls for you and have intelligent conversations. So that's kind of like the roadmap for the next 30 to 60 days, something like that. And so this is where you want to create your default settings, even if you're not a buyer. I just think it's helpful. So if we go into, whoops, I clicked on the wrong button. If we go into create a new deal, so the deal that we're going to be underwriting, which is the deal that, this is the deal we looked at, right? Yep. So we're going to underwrite this deal. And we're going to do single family, and we're going to be covering Morby method. So we're going to cover Morby method. And if we just look at this real quick, kind of going back to what I talked about as far as default settings, you could see it pulled in at 50%, right? And you have these certain terms that are pulling in. If you go into assumptions, you have a certain assumptions that are pulling in here. If you didn't have a buy box, then all of that you'd have to put in manually. So it just gives you a nice little head start for you to put information in here. Now, obviously, this is pulling from information that we haven't even put into the deal yet. So obviously that doesn't make sense at this point in time, but we're going to put in the information here. So I'm going to go enter in the information. So we're going to put in the purchase price. And if you want to fill in all this information, I've been playing around with some stuff this morning. I don't know why I have this disabled. Usually it is working for me. So for some reason, it's not, but usually I click the button and then it imports the listing from Zillow. So I'll have to take a look at that. Oh, and just so you know, the benefit for me in this challenge, honestly, is I'm getting people to test and help me work out all these issues. So just so you know, this is in beta testing right now. And I'm more than happy to provide as much education and help with the learning in exchange for helping me kind of just test this stuff out and hopefully get to give you a chance to lock up some deals. So we're going to put in, if you look here, we're going to put in our comps. So how do you find comps? There's a couple different ways you can find comps. You can find comps. Let me just put in the address here into the software. Columbus, Ohio, 43206. Oh, you know why the freaking Zillow button didn't work? Because I didn't put in an address, you dummy. It might be helpful if I put that information in there. It can't import something that doesn't exist. Okay, so now it imported. You can see it pulled in the agent information. It pulled in the purchase price. I'm working on being able to pull in the comps. I'm having trouble getting that API to work, but eventually it'll pull in rental estimate comps. Hold on, let me let people in here. I actually don't know why not. It's not letting me let people in. Give me a second. The thing that says to let people in is just sitting there. So we got people stuck. Oh, here we go. Cool. Awesome. I found it. Sorry, I got like 20 things going on at once. Okay. So I'm going to leave this blank for now because I'm underwriting this as a LTR. So whether you want to have a vacancy or not, that's up to you. I'm not going to put anything in here for vacancy, but just running comps in general, what you can do is go to a site like Renometer. Now, Renometer, I think they have a free trial, but it does cost money. For me, it's well worth it. I don't remember how much it costs. I think it's like $500 a year or something like that. I can't remember. But I use Renometer as like my number one source of comping. I will show you some other free sites you can use here in a second. So you're going to put in this address. I'm going to put 2 bed, 3 bath. Whoops. 2 bed, 1.5 bath. And I like to put in the square footage. So I like to put in a range like plus or minus 100 square feet or 50 square feet. I try to get pretty accurate, granular with that. Wow. I don't know a lot about the Columbus market, just FYI, but I'm kind of surprised to see that as market rent. So I'm going to put that in here as market rent right now, but we're also going to go check this out on some other comping sites just to get an idea of what this looks like. So I use Rentcast as like an additional data point. I don't really think it's that good, to be honest, but it is just helpful to have another data point. So I'll put in 2 bed, 3 bath, and I'll put in 1344 square feet. And what we're covering right now of getting comps, like this is not Morby method specific. This is not sub-2 specific. This is just like real estate underwriting 101 in general. So this is applicable to really any asset strategy within, I would say, single family, right? Multifamily, you're not going to be able to use these sites to run these comps. So pretty wide range, right? We got 2449 and then we got 1850. That's pretty big discrepancy. So let's go and see what Zillow rental estimate. So if you just type in Zillow rental estimate and click that first link here, they actually, I think they changed. I think they changed this. It didn't used to look like this, so this is interesting. We'll see. I don't think Zillow's made an update in like 20 years, so that's like surprising to see an update. Okay, so what's interesting is that average rent in this area is $13.95, but this is like killing it, right? So we got $22.48. So between those 3 data points, you can start digging in more. Usually at this stage, I'm just trying to do napkin math underwriting. I'll probably go on the conservative end and maybe use something like the 2250 number, because I think that's what it said, right? 2248, something like that. 2248. Yeah, I'm just going to put in 2250 because that was pretty close to what Rentcast got as well. So that seems pretty within line. And then we're going to go through and look at property taxes. So I don't really honestly put a lot of trust in the property taxes that will come from Zillow, but I will use this for napkin math underwriting. What you would want to use is probably something like DealSauce, PropWire, whatever you're pulling your leads from, use that to look at the actual property taxes. And even then, sometimes it's not right. If you really want to get granular, like go into the county of the property, the county records, and you'll be able to see the actual property taxes. What's up, man? Yep, we did. Yerzan, we did meet in Columbus, Ohio for the first time. That was pretty cool. You joined sub 2 right after that. I know he joined sub 2 just because of me, right? Not Pace. So we're going to do, we got property taxes, which this is pretty, love it. This is pretty high right here, but we're going to type this in 3,900. So we got $325 a month. I'm going to say that this is probably like $2,000 in insurance. Insurance is one of those things like you're not going to know until you just get a quote. But generally speaking, I feel like that's a pretty good range. For me, specifically here in Indianapolis, I can get an insurance policy for between $115 and $135 a month. So $135 is like $1,620 a year. So for me to be a little bit higher than that at $2,000, I think that's, pretty reasonable. We're not, Columbus, Ohio is not too far from Indy. It's still pretty affordable from that perspective. And we're going to go in and put, this is all dependent on you, like however much risk you want to take on property management expenses. Me personally, I have some of my properties in-house. Some of it is being transitioned to one of my partners. So we between me managing it or my other partner managing it, we kind of internally charge 5%. So that's just a personal preference, right? You may have something that's more like 8%. So you have to put in what is comfortable for you. And CapEx reserves, honestly, you can put in on. You can get to the point where you can be really realistic, and you're just never going to get a deal under contract. If you like try to be realistic about real estate, here's the truth about single family real estate: you are not going to make money at all as an LTR. Like, just release the thought of actually making money, because it's not going to happen. Now, if you're doing co-living, you could probably, if you're puddling up $700-800, like, you're probably getting some decent cash flow every month. But LTR, like, there's no way. We were talking earlier today about what is the standard for property managers, right? Well, as far as them signing up a tenant and a leasing fee. And I've always managed my own property, so I never really went out and started sourcing other quotes. And I was hearing things like, they get the first month's rent. Holy cow, man. If you look at that, take this first month's rent and give it to the property manager. Shouldn't that be in underwriting at that point, right? Because it's a real cost that's really going to happen. But however, if you start really factoring in all those costs, like, you're just going to look at single family and you're going to be like, I'm never going to get a deal because it's just never going to make money. So if you're trying to buy a single family for like actual income or passive income, I mean, show me where they're at, because I'm not seeing them. I don't ever get passive income from it. I mean, it's really a long-term play, to be honest. Not to kind of have a rainy cloud over single family, but it's just, I take a beating. I take a beating every year, honestly, and it's really a long-term play. So let me get off my soapbox on that. So in my opinion, you can't put CapEx reserves high enough, but for the sake of underwriting, we're going to put it at 8% here. So you can see this is actually a quote unquote break even property with $43 before we even factored seller finance payments in. So let me stop real quick and just get a quick pulse. Am I losing people, or everyone with me right now so far? Okay, cool. Awesome. So we haven't really got into the nitty gritty stuff. We just kind of looking at a basic underwriting, but now we're going to get into more of the Morby method specific stuff. You'll notice a few things like buyer surplus. That's something that you typically don't see in, just normal real estate deals. Usually you're sinking a bunch of equity into a deal. Morby method is a strategy where you can actually, get paid at closing. And we'll talk about that right now. And so that's what the buyer surplus represents. It represents your equity or your surplus funds at closing. Meaning, if we underwrote this deal and locked this deal up as it sits right now, you would get paid $42,000 to buy this property after the closing of 2 transactions. And I'll show you how in a little bit. But the other thing you need to pay attention to is, like, yeah, that'd be really cool to put 42 grand in my pocket. However, with the way the deal is currently structured, this would tell you that in your exit, according to this, which I think the default in here is, it's actually 8 years. And we'll play around with the terms here in a little bit. But your exit here means at the end of that 8-year period, you're going to be over leveraged, meaning you're going to have to stroke a check for $71,000 to exit your loan. And that's where you start to see people fail. In my opinion, from a lot of the deals I've seen in the community get bought over the past year, I think we're going to see a freaking wave of defaults in the next 2 or 3 years. And people right now are kind of like on a buying spree with Morby methods, and they just don't know how to underwrite Morby methods. So I'm here to try to provide some education and help people avoid a mistake, 2, 3, 4, 5 years in the future before it even happens. That's part of the purpose of today's training as well. So we'll dive into this in a little bit. So as we kind of run through this again, this is really basic real estate stuff. You have your income, you have your PITI, which is your loan costs and your property taxes, your insurance. We haven't done anything with the seller finance payment yet, so we need to factor that in. Then we have property management, CapEx, any fixed operating expenses. I didn't put anything down here because I'm underwriting this as an LTR. And then you're looking at your gross cash flow and your net cash flow. So what I call gross cash flow, which, it's kind of really more or less a term that I made up. It's not necessarily a really defined term, but the gross cash flow here is basically adding back the CapEx reserves, because the CapEx reserves, it's not an actual payment that you have to write to, Mr. Plumber every month for $180. It doesn't exist. It's not real. So technically speaking, your cash flow really is $223 a month, but you're making a budgetary allocation for CapEx reserves, as Pace likes to call it, the war chest, right? You're holding $180 back for your war chest, and your true net cash flow after you holding back your war chest is $43.75, which is essentially breaking even. And all it does is take, 1 year property taxes. And, if you look at a stagnant market like it is right now, rents are actually decreasing, not increasing. So what happens when rents are decreasing, right? And property taxes are increasing, you're going to start losing money. I mean, that's just straight up what's going to happen. What's going on? If you, if we can tell everyone to come on in. What's up? I'm sure we'll have people kind of trickling in. Hey, what's going on, man? And so I guess at the pace, in my head when I'm doing training, I'm always like, I'll just cover this in like 30 minutes. And then I usually end up talking for 3 hours. So I'm totally guilty of that. So judging by the pace that I'm moving, don't see us getting to sub 2 anytime soon tonight, if I'm just being honest. But I still want to kind of lay down the foundation for you guys, which is good. So, hey, what's going on? And so if we go to the financing section, okay, this is where it starts to solidify your understanding of mortgage methods, okay? So in this transaction, you can play around with this. The cash to seller is going to be 50%, okay? And if you wanted to change this, you could certainly change that to 40% cash to seller and 60% seller financing, however you want to structure it. So in this scenario, we're going to go with 40% cash to seller. Seller is going to carry back 60%. And then here we can set whatever custom payment we want. I'm going to only start off with $100 monthly payment. So that's what I'm going to do for the seller financing. And then for the bank financing, and I'm going to slow this down a little bit here in a second. This is what we're going to get for the DSCR loan. So you can drag this to whatever makes sense to you. Okay. So hopefully everyone in here has a context of what mortgage methods are. And it's essentially a way of doing a hybrid between purchasing a property with a mix of seller financing and a mix of a bank loan. So you're getting a bank loan, a DSCR loan for your down payment. So it works really well when a seller has high equity and they're willing to do seller financing, but they want a large down payment. So how you're getting this down payment, I personally like to look at my cash to seller and seller financing as my first two columns, but you can move this around to however it makes sense in your head, however you want to structure it. So if you look at it, where's the down payment coming from? So the down payment's coming from the DSCR loan. So in this case, I'm going to get as of right now, I'm going to get a 75% LTV loan for this property. And I'm not going to land there because if you look at this, like we're extremely over leveraged at this point. So I'm going to play around with this in a second, but if you have a question of like, okay, where am I getting this seller finance down payment? If the seller wants 50% or 40% down payment, where is that coming from? Well, this is the answer where that's coming from. You're getting that from a DSCR lender. So when you combine between the bank funded debt, the loan that you're getting with the seller financing, you are not buying a property with any money out of your pocket, essentially. Let me pause right there and see if anyone has any questions real quick as we're kind of going through that. Are we all pretty clear with that on that type of structure? Is any questions so far? Hey, what's going on? Come on in. I'm doing good. So we're doing I'm doing a live training right now. I figured we'd kind of like mix it in with our meetup for the first like 20 minutes or so, and then after that we'll just all hang out and just network and get a good time. So we're doing a training on it's a creative finance strategy called Morby Methods. So yeah.
I'm not currently an agent or anything. I'm a local real estate company, but I'm getting my license. So if you're gonna come check it out.
Heck yeah, man.
I'm gonna talk to you.
Yeah. Were you at the creative meetup last month? Or?
This is the first time I've ever heard of it. I
Okay.
was just kind of like Googling real estate stuff around, looking to take on new clients, looking for more people to market to, and I happened to see your Underwrite thing, and I was like, well, put that down on my calendar and go check it out.
Nice. Very cool, man. Well, it's good to have you.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to play around with this because right now I don't like the debt structure. So this is like where the magic happens for me, and this comes with experience, right? So I'm going to play around, and again, I'm going to move this to position to where I personally like to see it. That's why I made it flexible for you guys to kind of move things around. But I'm going to start with probably 50% cash to seller, and then I probably want to do 70% seller financing. I'm sorry, 70% bank financing at 7%. So right now I'm still over leveraged. So I'm going to go to this. You're Zon. What's up, bro? You got a question? Or did you accidentally raise your hand?
Yeah.
Oh, what's up?
Yeah,
what's
bro.
Up?
Yeah. How are you, bro?
I'm doing
thanks
good,
for
man.
doing this, bro.
Yeah,
Appreciate
absolutely.
it. Thanks, man. Thanks. The question is, so we are getting the SCR, right? Let's say 75%. And we get PML for basically the satisfied first leg of transaction, right? And what's the fee for the SCR as like getting 75% LTV? Let's say PML is going to charge 20%. The SCR is going to charge something for that, like to pay them off of the equity, not the equity, but the amount that we'll get on the front end. Should we pay for that? What's the origination fee for the SCR, and how much we pay for PML usually? Is it like 20% or what?
So if you, depending on how you structure this, typically in this type of transaction, you don't have to raise private capital from a PML because the seller is your PML. Does that make sense?
Because the seller finance 50%.
Correct.
And I'm basically over leverage, right? But
Correct.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
in
so
this
you,
case, no PML.
No PML. You don't need to bring in a PML because the PML is going to charge you, if you're going to find a PML in the community, it's probably going to be 12%, and they're probably going to want equity. If it's an individual, you may be able to get 7 or 8 or something like that, but it actually is going to get pretty expensive having a 10 to 12% loan on whatever that down payment's going to be. So a lot of times, people will knock like, oh, why would you go get a bank loan at 7% when I can get a 3% seller financing, right? I think there's some weird feedback here. Hold on. How do I mute that? But does that answer your question? You're not getting any PML financing whatsoever.
Gotcha, bro. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure, man. For sure.
Thanks, man.
Okay, so the reason why you don't have to raise capital from a PML for your gap funding is because you're getting that bank loan to serve as that down payment. So the seller right here, let's just take it one at a time. The seller wants 50% down payment. You're getting that 50% down payment. You're actually getting more than 50% from your bank financing loan, right? And ultimately, if this makes, this is the why I kind of made it draggable, is because, however it makes sense in your head to structure this, on the back end, the seller is going to get 50% cash at closing, and then they're going to do seller financing on the remaining, right? Whatever you've actually agreed to. And so I'm going to jump over to this refinance section actually real quick here. So I mentioned that this right here is your point of over leverage. So right now, what this is doing is it's looking at the future value of this property, buying this property at $285,000. That's what it's worth today, right? And it's appreciating at a 3% rate for 8 years. So that's what the property's worth in 8 years based upon this parameter. Now, if you wanted to change that, obviously that would change the numbers. that would change the entire structure of the deal, right? Some years you may have 10% growth, but some years you may have stagnant or negative growth. So relatively speaking, 3%, 4%, that's pretty conservative number to go off of. And then you can put in your LTV loan percent. So I think where a lot of people don't really factor this in is they'll think about, oh, the property is going to be worth $360,000 in 8 years. That's amazing because my overall debt is going to be $321,000. Well, what they forget about calculating is that no lender is going to give you 100% LTV, right? So you need to factor that into your loan because realistically, they're going to give you 75% LTV or 80% LTV. So you can go in there and change that LTV to 80% here. Usually when you're getting 80% LTV or higher, your interest rate is just going to go up. So if you can get 75% LTV, you're in a better position from a cash flow perspective because your interest rate's lower. But that's what this is taking a look at. So you're looking at, okay, what's the property worth in 8 years? What's my refinance loan going to look like? What's my refinance cost going to look like? So it's probably going to be closer more to like 1% or something like that. So this is basically saying, okay, after the loan cost, what I'm going to be able to get an actual loan on this property on in 8 years based on the value at that time is $285. Okay. Now we have to consider our overall debt stack because we basically, you over leverage yourself on day one, which is, it's not initially bad to over leverage on day one if you know what your exit period is. And as long as you have enough of a leeway to just let time do its work, right? Make sure you underwrite appropriately. So in 8 years, your debt pay down is going to be $321,000. So what this is saying is that we don't have enough because the loan that we're going to get is $285, but we owe $321. That's a problem. Okay. So what's going to happen is you're going to have to stroke a check for $35,000. So if your plan is, if that's okay with you, then perfectly fine. Just know what you're getting into. But if that's not okay with you, you're going to be in for a rude awakening, which is why I said about 20 minutes ago that in 2 or 3 years, we're going to start seeing a massive wave of defaults on this exact strategy is because I've seen a lot of people underwrite these very, very poorly, focusing on the buyer surplus that they're getting at closing. And they're like, cool, I got paid 20 grand at closing. Okay, well, what's going to happen in 3, 4, or 5 years whenever you have to exit that loan? You're going to be so far underwater, you're not going to be able to do anything. Hold on, I'm trying to figure out what this image is on. I've never seen an image in a chat before. I'm sorry, I'm getting distracted. So for me, I don't necessarily like the fact that this is a $35,000 over leverage, right? So I'm going to bump this up to 10 years. Now, why does that number change from 35 to 10? It's because we have an extra 2 years of appreciation, right? There's a couple things. We have an extra 2 years of appreciation. So the property's worth more, ideally. And then we also have an extra 2 years of debt pay down. Okay, so you have appreciation going up, debt pay down going down, and that spread in the middle is your equity, right? So you're trying to create as much equity as possible. So your point of over leverage is really only $10,000. But that's still a problem if you don't have $10,000. But if you look at it from this perspective, if you're getting paid $28,000 at closing, you really don't have over leverage because you technically have that money in your bank account. Now, if you took that money and you went and bought a Tesla or a boat, you're going to have some problems, right? Or if you went and bought and stuck it into another deal that was also over leveraged, you might have some problems, right? You may get to a point where it's just like a dominoes. The deck of cards is just going to come falling because you're just going from one leverage to another and just stacking and stacking and stacking. So you need to have, I'm not saying buying these at scale is a problem because I've obviously done it, but you need to have a very well thought out plan for how you're going to buy these properties with this strategy, or you're going to be in for a rude awakening. So if you really just wanted to structure this with like, hey, I don't want any money coming out of my pocket. I even want to get paid at closing, or I'm sorry, paid when I refinance out of this loan. So putting it at 12 years would be in a pretty safe position, in my opinion, based on all the negotiations I've had. It's very rare I can get a seller to agree to 12-year seller financing. It usually is somewhere between 7 and 8 is usually where we end up landing. I always ask for 10 to start off with. Maybe I should ask for 15 in the beginning. Maybe that might be a good idea. I should do that. And then maybe we get to 10. They're like, oh, cool, 10. Maybe I should start doing that. So does that make sense for what we've covered so far and kind of like how this structure works before I get into the actual escrow breakdown and how all this money moves and how like you actually get a buyer surplus at closing? Before I get into that, I wanted you to understand the concept of the property appreciating and then also the leverage and how that moves with in respect to time. Does that make sense? Any questions? Any questions here? I know everyone's kind of just hopped in the last second.
Mundo, real quick.
Yeah.
Mundo, real quick, brother. You said I'm not gonna get PML, but I thought because it's a 2 escrow basically, right? The first one is I'm getting 75 LTV, but to satisfy first leg of transaction, I'll need to have some kind of like a down payment, right? And
Yes.
show the STR. I thought like I'm gonna get 25% from PML, 75 from the STR, and satisfy first leg of transaction. Then basically whatever left is gonna be sent to the second escrow, and second escrow is gonna be like kind of instruction where to send how much money. So
Yes.
am I correct?
You are correct in just the semantics of it. I think more of a PML is like a long-term PML or someone who's lending on a fix and flip for 4 to 6 months or a longer term, 2-3 year hold. Really what most people refer to it in the community is transactional lending, a transactional lender, but I would probably more safely refer to them as a capital partner. That's probably what you're thinking about, right? Someone who's going to, hey, where's the 25% down payment going to come from? Like that. Okay, cool. Yeah. You will need, if you don't have the cash, you will need that partner involved in the deal with you. And now that gets into like the legal structure. We're not covering that today, but as far as the underwriting, I'm going to skip over the assumptions because I'm actually going to delete this tab. It's kind of embedded everywhere throughout. I try to clean it up and make it more user friendly. So let's talk about how we structure. Let me check on time because I want to make sure. Okay, cool. We got about 20 minutes left because I want to make sure everyone here at the meetup has time to hang out and socialize and all that stuff. But I want to make sure you guys are taken care of too. So if we look at your question is, where's the 25% down payment coming from? That's where you're going to bring in that transactional lender or that I'll keep saying, capital partner to partner with you on the deal. And so it's not just the down payment. It's actually a lot more. And this is where also a lot of people, hey, Allie, it says you do that. What is your last name? It just says Allie's phone. Okay, cool. Awesome. Nice to meet you. I think we're Facebook friends. We haven't had the chance of like chatting yet, but cool. Awesome. So if we look at the purchase, the initial purchase is right here. So this is a down payment. This is pretty traditional. Every DSCR loan, you're going to have a down payment. Whatever your earnest money is, that's going to be a part of that down payment. So in this case, 25% is this number. Then what actually catches people by surprise a lot is a lot of times the lender will require 3 months of property taxes, 3 months of escrow payments for insurance, and sometimes they even require 3 months of mortgage payments, which can really hurt when they do that. I've even seen some that do 6 months. Now, a lot of lenders that I've used in the past or like just now, I avoid the prepaid mortgage payments, but I have seen lenders do that. And that usually I didn't find out that surprise until right before closing. And they're just like, oh, here you go. And it's 20K more than you thought. And they're just like, it's just 20K. And I'm like, oh yeah, it's just 20K. Like, let me just pull that out of my ass. Right. And so that's just something that you need to be prepared for. And those are some of the questions that you would want to ask that DSCR lender ahead of time on some of their requirements and what they do. Real quick, for the people that are transactional lenders or capital partners, one thing that you could use this software for is for referrals, right? So if you look at Jay's on here, he does a lot of stuff. So you could show up technically on this resource tab if you create your profile and set it up. And then you can see Irina, she's a PML. She's a long-term PML. I should probably just delete her and just like only use her, and then she's my PML, but I'm not going to do that. I rarely see a long-term PML, so I don't know. Maybe it might be a good opportunity for people here. But let me get back to the escrow part here. So you fund the down payment, and then you have the loan requirements of funding your escrow. You're going to be, we talked about that for the three months. And then you have your third-party fees, right? So depending on what you negotiated, you're going to pay your realtor 3% or whatever, the percentage is. And then if you have a wholesaler, you're going to pay an assignment fee, obviously. If you don't have a wholesaler, then you're not going to pay an assignment fee. TC, so TC is probably, I don't know, Jay, what do you charge? $3,000, something like that, to do a TC on a mortgage method? Is that probably about right? Something around that range. So you're going to want to factor that in. So there's a lot of like little hidden costs that you want to make sure you factor in, because that number could actually, start to grow pretty quickly, right? And then you have closing costs, just your normal closing costs and part of the loan. So if you start from here, if you just look at it from the perspective of, okay, I need a capital partner for my down payment. It's not just that. It's the loan requirements. It's the third party fees. It's the closing costs. And if you start to add all that up, it's actually well over $110,000. It's $111,000 right here. That's the true like liquidity number that you need. And I've been doing this long enough to know that like I'm usually within like $1,000 or $2,000 plus or minus. I try to be a little bit more conservative. So usually I'm kind of on the upside. So I'm usually pretty close on where these numbers land. But then even on top of that, what the lender will also require is liquidity reserves. So they will want to see 3 months of mortgage payments or 6 months of mortgage payments. And what that means is, let's say you have $111,000.70, or no, let's say you have $113,000 in your bank account. According to this, just because you have the amount of money for the total cash due at closing, you will not get approved for financing, because you have to also meet their liquidity requirement. They want to know if shit hits the fan and you can't pay your mortgage for 3 months, that you have some source of liquidity to make them feel comfortable with giving you financing. I actually had a deal that I was doing that I was $100 short on my liquidity, and they would not give final loan approval because I was $100 short. So I had to transfer money from just from my bank account to cover the $100. But I was just like, we were talking about like a $440,000, property. And I'm like, we're really holding up financing over $100. Like it seems pretty silly, but they are like, it's no joke. It is that strict. If you don't have the funds and you can't prove it, you're not getting financing. So that is an additional consideration. If you're, I'd say more so, a lot of people that are capital partners, they probably have that much cash. But if you start getting into like larger multifamily, that liquidity number becomes really, really important, because that could price a capital partner out. So you really want to know your numbers ahead of time before you go and have those conversations. And the more put together you are with your underwriting and everything, when you're having those kind of conversations with capital partners, you just look more professional, right? Nothing makes you look more stupid when you're $30,000 off in your calculation. So I can assure you of that. So when you're buying the property in a mortgage method, you are actually, at least the way I do it, there's lots of different ways you can do it. You're purchasing the property, and that's what you're doing. Like there's no creative finance. Like you are straight up purchasing the property, nothing creative. You got a loan, you brought cash to closing, you closed on the deal. The creative part comes in a second transaction where you essentially refinance your equity out of the property. You can think about that as a HELOC, right? You get a HELOC on your home, right? A lot of Americans probably do that. They get HELOCs on their home and they're pulling equity out of their property. That's what you're doing here. You're just doing it in the form of, it's a roundabout form of seller financing, but you're essentially pulling out the equity that you put into the property. Yes. Cash out refi is also another way you can look at this. So however that resonates with you, but that's what we're doing in the second transaction. And this is where the surplus funds comes into play. So if we look at, let me pause for a second. Are we all clear on this first half here? We got the purchase, the down payment, the loan requirements, the third party fees, the closing cost, total cash due at closing. Okay, cool. We're all clear on that. So pay attention to this number, and we're going to see how all of that kind of shapes to that buyer surplus number. So if we go back over here, remember we got seller financing for 50%. Okay. So where that comes into play is over here. This is that 50%. So we start in the second transaction in your HELOC, your cash out refinance, whatever you want to call it. You have the amount that is agreed upon for seller financing, which is $142,500. Then you have closing costs. So you typically have, it's pretty nominal in this second transaction. Like I just budget like $900, so something pretty small. But the major thing that's happening is you as the buyer or you collectively with your capital partner have put $111,070 into the deal, right? So in this second transaction, that equity that you put into the property is actually coming back to you, okay? Because we're doing this cash out refi, this HELOC, whatever you want to call it, you're doing this refinance transaction where the seller has agreed to carry $142,500. So if you look at this transaction here, the seller got paid 50%. Here, I'll move this over just for illustrative purposes. The seller got paid 50% cash at close. Normally in a real estate transaction, the seller gets 100% of this transaction, right? That represents 100% of the purchase price. And then what happens is the whatever mortgage balance they have, that gets paid off. And then whatever's left over is their equity. Well, the seller's walking away in this case with 50%. If they have a mortgage, that's getting paid off from that 50% they received. And this other 15% is this other 50% is being transferred to that second transaction. You're actually entering into a business transaction on this refinance loan. So that's what's happening. This $142,500, that's what's happening here. So you have the $142,500, you have the closing cost, and you have the return of capital, this 111 right here. That's what's happening. That's coming back right here. It's coming back to you as the buyer or you as the capital partner. That's coming back in the second transaction. And then if your capital partner, you and your capital partner have come to an agreement that, hey, I will fund this, but I want to get paid from that, right? That is something that you can put in there as an exit fee to the partnership or however. I'm not going to cover legal structure today, but however, if you want to build that in, you can build that in. If you're using your own capital, then that's zero. There is no, unless you want to charge yourself, which I don't know why you would do that. So the total of all that after the return of the initial capital, which was the funding of this deal, this initial purchase, plus any exit fees, anything like that, is $114,701. So it's just simple math at this point. You take the seller financing minus the $114,701, and you have $27,799 left over. So what that means is that money actually comes back to you as the operator, the buyer. It physically will be wired to you, so you will physically get paid $27,799. Let's just call it $28,000. So that's what's actually going to be coming into your bank account. So when we talk about the buyer surplus, that's what that means. So playing around with these transactions is all about a balance. For me personally, it's a balance between cash flow to at least break even. It's a balance between buyer surplus. I personally use the buyer surplus to put reserves into the property because real estate, honestly, it's expensive. I mean, I don't know what the number is. I don't want to know what the number is. I'll probably throw up, but I probably spent $150K in CapEx this year, and that makes me want to vomit, right? Real estate's expensive. It's not easy to maintain properties. Stuff breaks all the time. So you have to have capital for that. And I like to structure these deals so I have capital built in on the front end. The other thing, so if you look at the matches, so we'll go to the matches real quick. If you're like so confused about what just happened over the past like 45 minutes, this is really all you need to know. From like an underwriting perspective, if you see a bunch of like green over here, this is like all the buyers on the platform. It has their buy box on there, and it's ranking every single buyer's buy box. So every person that has a buy box, it's giving a ranking score. So for Jason, for example, he likes this deal. He would do this deal. You can see my ranking. I would do this deal. It's showing as an 83%. But you can see there's some other people that don't want to do this deal. And I suspect it's because the cash flow isn't high enough, and they've placed a higher importance of waiting on that cash flow. And so you have some other people that are like, oh, I just want, that cash flow. I know from personal experience that it's very difficult for me to find an LTR property that's going to cash flow pretty significantly, which is why my realistic target is only $200 per like door per deal for single family, just because I know like that $400, $500, $600 cash flow for LTR is just not possible unless you're just going to sink a bunch of equity into the deal. That's the only way you're really going to get that kind of return from that perspective. And then we talked about the resources very briefly. Jay is like the biggest Morby Method TC in the community. I mean, he's done way more Morby Methods than me. I think he's done like 200 or something like that. He's done every kind of Morby Method you can think of. So obviously he's a resource. If you're just like, I don't know what you just said, but I just know that was kind of cool and you need someone to help get your deal to the finish line, Jay would be a great resource for you as well. So with that being said, what questions do we have before we kind of wrap up? I actually made it on time today, which is a miracle. Any questions in the room? I probably just, did that go like pretty high over your head, or how are we?
This
Yep.
numbers right now for how many years balloon refinance?
12.
12.
Yes,
Okay.
correct. 12. Yeah. Jennifer, what question do you have?
Hi. So when you're looking at doing just the interest only payment to the seller versus principal only, which is usually more favorable when it comes time to refi?
Oh, such a good question. So your question was, what would you prefer, interest only or principal only? Or what was that kind of your question?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
cool. What's going on, man? So if we take a look at this right here, if I go to interest only, so let's pay attention to this cash needed at maturity number. Even if I take this measly $100 and make it, actually, hold on one second. Let me put something in better terms here. Actually, I think we might have found a bug here. Hold on. Yeah, I actually don't think this was calculated correctly. I wanted to show you. So basically, interest only payment, you're not paying anything towards principal, right? So if you have a $500 monthly payment and that's only going to interest, and you have let's say $142,000 seller finance note, when you look at your overall refinance in 12 years, it's still going to be $142,500. It's not going to change at all. Versus, so that was a $594 payment versus if you put in here $594 and that's principal only, when you look at it, like look at the dent you've made in the seller financing, you went from $142,500 to $56,000. Like that's the power of like principal only payments versus interest only, because the balance of the principal balance is not changing. It's just staying the same, if that makes sense. So now it did calculate it correctly when I did that. instead of me being over leveraged or slightly over leveraged, I'm actually going to get $82,000 back whenever I refinance based on, these exact terms. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. I'm glad I got to see that. Thanks.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Mundo,
Yes.
quick.
Yes.
As far as protection for the seller, let's say because I'm an acquisition, right? I'm a wholesaler. So when I structure a deal, they want to like, hey, how am I gonna be protected? I mean, it's like a little bit. It's not. I think off topic, like as far as like underwriting, but it's like just DSCR. I mean, a more big question where. Because they're asking like, hey, how am I gonna be protected, right? So, are you using LLC type of scenario, or you are just like, hey, I'm gonna give you and bring you like promissory note up front, like before I'm even structuring the deal, before I'm even the calculations and stuff.
A lot of times I'm securing them in second position.
Mm-hmm.
Another way you could secure them is in your LLC taking title. I know a lot of people do that. I've never been the biggest fan of doing that, but that's really just because I like to choose to do business with people, like not be like forced to be in a partnership with a seller. Because the seller wants out, they don't want to be involved. So like when you partner with the seller, like what value are they really bringing? Like they're really not doing anything. And I have some arrangements like that where the seller is just all the seller is doing is just being a pain in my ass, honestly. So that's why I don't really like doing it that way. But that is a way to secure the seller is, be in that LLC with you as a member.
Yeah, gotcha. Sounds good, brother. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right. Well, if you don't have any other questions, that will wrap it up for today. And then stay tuned for tomorrow. We'll plug some buyers in, and then we'll just kind of give you some exposure to some of their buy boxes. I know Benjamin Wong, he's in Owners Club. I know he's coming on tomorrow, I think first thing, hopefully. I'll have to touch base with him. And we'll have some other people join too. So you'll get to hear their perspective on like what kind of deals that they're looking for. And then we're actually going to continue this challenge. So you actually have until January 15th to lock up a deal. So you will have plenty of time to get familiar with this and underwrite deals and start submitting deals, and then find a deal to get under contract to potentially win a vacation. So
Appreciate the help, bro. You're the best.
Awesome. Thanks everyone. I appreciate you, and have a good rest of your night. I'll talk to y'all later, and then we're gonna have fun and hang out here in Indianapolis at the meetup. All right. See you. Oh shoot. Sorry. Someone had a question. Not anymore. Okay, awesome. Yeah, so typically, we just get up and hang out. Like we may have sometimes we just hang out and network the whole time if this is your first time here. And then sometimes we'll have stuff like this. We'll do maybe 15, 20 minutes of like training and real estate education, or we may bring in a speaker, things like that. And then we spend the rest of the night just networking and getting to know each other and figuring out what people need and, what value, we can all help each other out with. So I don't know who here is like part. I mean, I've seen some faces that I recognize, but how did you guys hear about this group? I see a lot of new faces too. So
Just Google. Generally looking up
he told me,
stuff. I saw
yeah.
the Eventbrite,
Yeah.
and I was like, hey, I need someone to check out.
Awesome. Very
It's
cool.
out there. People are finding it.
Yeah, very cool. Well, we're big on helping each other out here, and everyone showed up for a reason. So I want to make sure that you walk away with some value today. So hopefully, if I didn't bore you to death with this stuff, hopefully you can meet some good connections and get some value in this room. I mean, you really just honestly never know. That one key relationship can just unlock a bunch of future opportunities. I personally, before joining the community that we're in, Sub 2, I was very much a lone wolf, and I didn't really see the value in partnerships and relationships. And I'm just completely on the other end of the spectrum now. It's just I partner with a lot of people and I have a lot of friends, and it's just been life-changing for me. It's just, partnering with other good people and tapping into their resources and their network and just learning from each other. So hopefully get some value out of tonight and get out of your shell a little bit and just hang out, network, and we can get to it. So I just stand up and just like, well, hang out and chat. You want to talk about your deal? Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this though. Ask you this. What is the basic steps? 1, 2, 3. Because right now I'm looking to just do some wholesaling and build up some capital.
Yep.
So what's the basic step? Now I got the appointment for this property tomorrow. I got this appointment with an agent. So I reached out to an agent, got an appointment to see the place, but I'm pretty much really don't know really what's the steps. So what I'm asking is, what is the basic steps before? I mean, what kind of partnership should I have? Should I have, before I even look at a house and go try to find a house, should I have been connected with a buyer, find out what somebody wants? What's the next one? Tell me the steps.
Yeah, I mean, you already skipped from like,
I skipped a lot of stuff, like the underwriting.
Hey, you know, like the most important thing is taking action.
Okay.
Like that's like you did that, right? You're taking action.
Taking some action.
That's important.
And so, but see, to get a deal, so I'm asking this. So when a real estate investor get a deal under contract, what was the steps that they take? That's a question I should ask. Like a wholesaler or a bird dog. When they get that contract, get that property under contract. What was the steps that they take to get there?
Honestly, are you talking sub 2 or what are you talking?
I'm really talking about sub 2. I'm really talking sub 2.
You're probably not going to know enough to have a conversation to even get it under contract. So you're probably going to have to partner with someone that knows how to do that. That's probably going to be your best bet. Like that's going to be your first barrier. Is like, how are you even going to convince the seller to do a sub 2 deal and get it under contract when you don't even know?
I can't even really break it down other than will and the little bit, it's about you financing the house to me and we'll take over the payments for you.
Yeah.
There's
a lot more.
It's a lot more to it,
as far as like the contracts, the paperwork, and then if you start, they're gonna have questions, right? You're gonna need to know what contract do you even have, right? Where do you get? But you're in sub 2.
I'm in sub 2.
Okay, so you have the contract.
It's the contracts on the website.
It's in Kajabi.
Kajabi.
Yeah.
Print the contract.
Yeah.
So that's what I was telling you. So you see, I didn't have enough numbers for you on that property.
Correct.
I didn't have enough numbers.
Yes.
So what was I missing?
So you were missing the loan information. Like if you're going to take over the mortgage payment, you need to know what the mortgage payment is, right? You need to know what the loan is, the interest rate, when they got the loan, that kind of stuff. Like usually when you ask for a mortgage statement, that will give you the information you need, but you're probably not going to get that without having a surface level conversation. You're going to have to overcome some barriers first to even get to that kind of level. Does that make sense?
So now my next question is, should I make that appointment tomorrow? Call it. I mean, unless somebody's here, right? That's even with that, right? Just tell me what's some options.
So what is the? It sounds like you already have an appointment, right?
I do have an appointment.
So what was the appointment? Like, did you even talk about taking over mortgage payments or no?
No, I didn't talk to the real estate agent about that. I wanted to come see the house and take a look at it.
I would do it just to get experience. If you're new to it, just go on the appointment, man. Just get the reps in.
Because one thing about it, I looked at her bio and she's selling a lot of property. And I told her, I would like to work with you. We can make some money together. So she's gonna bring me some lists, tomorrow. So I still should make that appointment, but it'd be nice if I can get someone with some experience to go with me. Remember, I was actually about to write along. You said it's not in your schedule. That's what I would really like to do.
Yeah. The problem with
tell me about it.
I think like when you're first getting started, like you should just like get the reps in and just do what you're doing. Just have conversations, get to know agents. I think the focus on the relationship with the agent is probably more important than the actual deal.
Yeah.
I guess where I'm at personally, I don't have time to waste on a deal unless I know it's going to be a deal, right? Because I look at so many deals, it's like, why would I even like? If we haven't even had a conversation about creative, like then you may get there and they'll be like, hell no, I'm not doing creative finance. Like this is cash offer only. And it's like there's so many fish in the sea that it's just like I don't need to spend time taking time out of my day, spending 45 minutes driving to the property, talking to the agent for an hour, and then driving 45 minutes back. I've wasted 3 hours out of my day. I could have called like 50 agents during that time, or I could have sent out a couple hundred LOIs. You know, like that's just how I look at just how I'm structured my time. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense.
But when you're first getting started, man, I just do what you're doing. Just get in there, build reps, like just take action, learn. I mean, you'll walk away. The reason why I wouldn't do it is because I have already done that before, right? But if you're new to it, it's like you're gonna get value just from like going, showing up, and learning, and having that conversation with the agent. Like you're just gonna pick up things, and you're gonna be smarter, right? And then just keep doing that day after day after day. Keep stacking skills. And
Yeah. While I'm here, I'm gonna see if somebody can go just it's got some experience. Like I was saying, just.
have you done any substitute deals?
Yes. But let's do this. My suggestion, and it will be answer for your question. Like I told you, what we did another real agents in Florida, Minnesota. So just let's announce that hey, everybody stand up and just tell what he's doing, what he's working.
We don't have time for that.
But it will be just 2 minutes. 2 minutes each.
We're going to spend the whole thing into it. I think I don't know. We did that when it was like 10 people. It's fine. When you got like 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20. Like we're already at an hour just in the room. There's
So in this case, what you need to do, just go around, tell what you're looking for, what you have, and ask, hey, can you help me, or do you know someone who can help you?
Right. What's your avatar? What's your name?
My name is Minat, and yes, let me give you.
You got your blank? Got the blank. So what's your avatar?
How you doing, man? Steve.
Nice to meet you, man.
Nice to meet you.
Okay. Nice. Are you in sub 2 also?
I don't even know what sub 2
Okay.
is, man. He told me that he's been looking at real estate.
Yeah.
And that's about as far as I know. I'm originally from St. Louis. I was a loan officer in St. Louis. So I was just trying to see what y'all were talking about.
Very cool. Well, you live here now?
Yeah, I live here now.
Okay.
Yeah. So, this is my first introduction to any of it. So what's the basis of the? I mean, like the group. What is the group? I just scanned that and I went to.
It's creative finance meetup. We do like mostly talk about creative finance deals, but it's really just a networking.
When you say creative financing, what do you mean when you say creative
like
finance?
seller finance? That's a form of creative finance, right? And then we have taking over mortgage payments. So like subject to. I don't know if you heard of that. So where like the loan is under your name, but I buy the property. So the deed transfers to me, but the loan stays in your name. So that's a form of creative finance strategy.
Okay.
So there's a handful of creative finance strategies, but ultimately it's looking at acquiring properties at a cheaper entry point than traditional. Instead of putting a 20-25% down payment, you're looking at different strategies that are getting into a deal for 10%. Or even just doing a traditional deal and raising private capital. I mean, that's a form of creative finance, right? You don't have the down payment. So you partner with an investor who has that down payment, and then as long as you can structure the deal and it underwrites and all that stuff, you partner with them and you pay them monthly, and that's also a form of green finance.
So is the goal then is the goal to buy and sell a property, or you guys rent properties out, or you flipping properties?
We have all sorts of people here. That
Okay.
We have some people that are buyers, some people that are wholesalers, some people that are transaction coordinators, some people that are just like learning real estate or just very, very new. So kind of just a mix of all different types. That's right.
Okay. So is this all part of the Pace Norton group?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, it's free. The sub 2 group is it's not free, but the monthly meetup we have is free.
Okay. So it's best to find out what I'm basically trying to see where's the floor and where do you go from here. It seems like it's a lot of stuff kind of like, so it says real estate and buying real estate.
As far as what?